Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Science Thursday, we're going to talk about soldering fume extractor. So let's dive deep into it. So what exactly is this? Well, I had made a decision that I'm going to go deep into electronics, so soldering becomes the first thing. Well, soldering is hot and messy process. Now, I'm pretty sure most of you are aware of temperature and you know inherently how to handle it. Awesome. However, you have to understand the mess that is created. Now, where is the source of this mess? Well, majority of the source of that mess is the flux, basically the fumes that you are showing. Now, why there is that flux? Well, we have to use flux to remove oxide layer. It's a basically very specific type of acid that allows heat and its own chemistry to allow basically oxides to be removed from conductors, basically copper, aluminum, whatever have you, whichever conductor specifically. So you have a conductor, flux allows you to remove all of them, and be mindful, it's common across all fields. You have water plumbing, they still use flux. You have welding, metal welding, they still use flux. Soldering, you still use flux. So flux is one of those things that we need, and it does boil off and removes, basically cleans the area, and in case of welding, it also isolates that area from fresh oxygen. So it's awesome. However, it's generally very bad for your lungs, and we generally do not vaporize metal. Metals do require a lot of temperature to turn to gas, and it's almost impossible to do so on Earth. Why? Because we have something known as atmosphere. So even your soldering iron could go 400 degrees Celsius, 500 degrees Celsius. That's nowhere near to basically vaporize basically metal. That's not going to happen. So what at worst case scenario happen is, like, you could have a stray atom that just yeets out of there, which we call sputtering. Now sputtering is not an issue. Why not an issue? Well, there is something known as the atmosphere. When we do sputtering intentionally, we have to do it in high vacuum, so it can travel small distance. So trust me, unless your nose is directly there, you're not going to have lead going into your bloodstream or tin going to your bloodstream. However, the flux gases that are there, yeah, that will go to your nose, and it has a trajectory finder technology which makes sure that it always finds your nose and destroys it. So it's a very, very bad stuff. And other things also used in the construction of the PCBs, inks, other things, they are bad. Let's just put it that way. So you have to understand this. They have cumulative effect, meaning if you are, let's say, a cast technician, you solder once a year, it's not that big of a deal. But if you are a hobbyist or someone who's doing this for living, yeah, this is serious thing. It's cumulative. You cannot be like, I only do it like, every day. I can ignore it 1 hour a day. It's like, no. If it's regular enough that you know that you're going to use it, it has cumulative effect and it will harm you. It's one of those things. So what's the solution? Well, solution is you need to basically make sure that fume does not go to your lung. That's the first line of defense. How do you achieve that? That's up to you. In some scenarios, you are working in a well-ventilated area and you can just have a fan that is blowing away from you, and that will allow good enough isolation. But again, that's not recommended in most places because generally you are doing soldering in indoor places. So you have to remove the contaminants, so to say. So there are many particle size in the fumes. So that's why it's so difficult. Just because you cannot see some of the particles that are too small to see does not mean it's not there, it's there. And the big particles allows you to see the fume. So that creates an issue. You have too much mixture of particle sizes. Some are very small, some are just gas, some are tiny enough that some are big enough that it will settle down on their own. So what's the best way of tackling it? Multi-stage filtering is the most efficient way to consume least amount of energy and get the most amount of filtration. Now this multi-stage filtering applies on everything, liquid, air, whatever have you. So if you ever seen any basically tools talking about air filtration, you will always see they have multiple layers of filtering, like whatever have you. So you must ask, like, if the last one is doing the most of the work, why the heck you are the front one? Well, this is the critical aspect. If you have a pre-filter, it will be very porous. However, it will be good enough to block, let's say, hair, big dust particles, or all that. So it will be the first sieve that stops basically flow without causing choke hazard. But if you directly had HEPA filter, it will get into choked flow very quickly, meaning big particles will block it, and because it has such a small hole, airs cannot go around it. So you need to pre-filter air. That's why HEPA filter is rarely used. HEPA filter done. You always have pre-filter. So that's why we do it. And then once you go through HEPA filter, generally HEPA filters are very good at big particles, very good at very small particle, but there is a medium particle zone which are very lethal for our health. However, a HEPA filter can't do it because it's like small enough that it does not interact, and it's not too small where its static charge itself allows you to be like, allows it to be removed. So it just goes through HEPA. So to tackle that puppy, we utilize activated carbon. Now, activated carbon is just coal, basically graphite and things of that nature, but it is like in a form where it has insanely large surface area. So you take a charcoal and you heat that puppy up with pressurized steam. In those sort of scenario, you can open all their pores, remove all their impurities, and benefit would be the surface area would be exponentially higher. And benefit of that surface area and the fact that it is carbon, most gases that are going through your HEPA filter, it will be trapped in activated carbon. That's why we use activated carbon in so many things. It has the ability to just grab onto something and be like, I got this. I got this. It will not move out. So it removes smell. So, and that's the easiest test, like, basic test that you can do if you're soldering, and if you can smell it, especially from far away, yeah, the system is not working very effectively. And quality systems, they will remove the smell. And I had my experience when I like used my own DIY built system. I used to back in the day PVC pipes. I needed to basically punch a hole there. I did not have drill. I just used soldering iron. It used to stink like hell for almost a day if I did it indoor. Now it just does not smell. Now again, I do not recommend doing it. It was just worst case scenario, and now I have drill. So it's one of the, like, PVC electric box. I needed to do that. So if you can remove the smell, that means it's working. So that's the solution. So pro level is the first tool that you can think about it. Now, pro levels are generally used where you have individual doing it as a job. You are a technician, repairman, whatever have you. If this is a job, you are doing it daily, it would be wise for you to invest in this sort of tool. Or a factory. Now, like, wait a minute, do we still do soldering in factory? Yeah, many times. PCBs itself can be populated by what we call soldering station, pick and place machines. But when you're talking about actual wiring, most of the time still soldered by hand, and not everything is like designed for factory. Many things are designed by human. So you still have factories that have like a lot of work done by manual humans. So in those sort of scenario, this sort of toolkits are utilized. So if your exposure is high enough, the consequences goes from you may have some issues to like, no, you will have issues. So it's one of those things you must understand. Exposure, if you are experiencing it repeatedly, your body is giving you more than enough signals to like, hey, stop and do not mess up. So professionals have to use this. And how do they achieve it? Like this sort of quote unquote professional tools. Generally, they have vacuum pump. Vacuum is a bit harder to pull compared to blowing air, but it does allow filters to work far more effectively. So it has a lot of filters. So it will have pre-filter, HEPA filter, and activated carbon, and all are replaced periodically. And very high end ones, they literally have air sensors, basically air movement, and based on they will be calibrated from the factories. Like if our filters are used, this should be the pressure drop. Basically, one side would be this much psi, other side would be this much. Based on that, it will figure out how much life is left in the filters. And once the flow rate is not matching, then it will trigger alert where it's like, bro, replace the filter. So it has to be done periodically. It's no useful, no matter how big they are, no matter how awesome their filters are, they need to be replaced. So thus come with a consequence, because again, A, there is not enough competition in that market, and B, they're very loud because of the vacuum principle. They're very, very loud, and nobody is actually paying to make them silent. Like we can make things very silent, but it's just like nobody poured the effort and money needed for it, and they have duct for working, and that's the biggest advantage they have. They, even with weak suction power, they have the fact that they are so close to your soldering iron that it's gonna be like, I'm good, I got this. Like it's so close to your puppy. You do not supposed to have like very high suction power. You're just supposed to have like, close enough where it's like mild power, just gets the job done. So this is pro level. This is how professionals do it. And it's awesome. It's compulsory for someone who is doing it regularly, reliably. Like that's all you are doing, get it. So what if you are not in that category? Well, DIY. Now, why the heck I'm saying DIY rather than buying something like this from Amazon or whatever have you, is generally cheap ones do not make sense. Most of them are just of so low quality that you don't even know what you're paying for. You may be paying for just stamping metals. Like you literally could be paying so low that you will be shocked. It's like, how the heck you are selling fan, a frame, a filter, and one day later you'll be like, okay, I get it, because once fan will start to make random noises. So they have very low quality in terms of quality control, in terms of fan, in terms of filter. They are way, way too low quality to even bother buying them. So whenever you build it yourself, whatever the design, whatever the size, you have better quality control. You control which quality fans you are. Now, I'm very particular about fans simply because I have to use it. And this was the mistake in the Mark 1 that I built, is that I used this cheaper fan that are sold in electronic shop rather than PC shops. Electronic 120 millimeter, awesome, bit thicker. Oh my God, those puppies are noisy. Like, and here's the, you have to understand, if something is causing you irritation, there's a very good chance you're gonna shut it off even though it's saving your life. So that's why quality control matters. So next version I'm gonna utilize this puppy. This is Antec P12 pulse width modulation fan, the only fan that does not have RGB and actually is of decent enough quality, very cheap but decent enough quality. And Antec had made a upgraded version, but I could not find it in India as of now. You may be able to find it. This is 1500 RPM, the latest iteration of the same concept, low enough cost fan. It's 3000 RPM. Now, if you are a bowler, you can go into Noctua fans. Many people do that. Like they buy cheap one and they just eat fan out of there, put a Noctua fan. I'm like, do that from day one. So it's one of those things because there are only three components. You have fan, filter, activated carbon. Fan, you can buy. Filter, in my case, again, depending on where you live, it could be super easy to buy. Or in my case, I'm using this sort of filter. These are what we call Bosch airflow filter. These are used for vehicles, the cabin filters, not HEPA filters, but for my task it's more than good enough and they're very close enough. So it's up to you what exact type of filter you want to buy. Vacuum also have basically portable vacuum machines. They also have very good filters. So filter activated carbon, that's up to you. I'm also buying activated carbon that are big granules. This puppy does work, the one that I made, but it turns into dust too quickly, so it blows out too much dust. So I'm finding a different kind of granule design that should last. So it's very easy to acquire anywhere. If I can do this in India, you can do easily anywhere in the world and fit into your budget. So what if you do not have budget? Buy a duct, put a fan, done. Better than nothing, more than good enough for early stages. That's how it works. So it's always better to build a quality solution rather than basically buying a hyper cheap one. This individual also has the same concept. This was the inspiration. I've linked the video down below. This was the inspiration, having two stages of system. So, and again, I did not like the design of this individual simply because he used small fans. Law of physics is very clear. Thou shall not use small fans. Small fans have to spin much faster and they are much louder. I do not like noise and they also suck less. So fundamentally, you always want big fan. Thankfully, 120 millimeter fans are like such a commodity now that you can buy very high quality fans for it there. So people can just make fan that are just vents to multi-stage filtering system, and people have built it out of shoe boxes. So you do not have an excuse. If you are an electrician who is dealing with this sort of thing, you do not have a genuine excuse. It's like, it's too much difficult. No, this is one of the simplest thing you can build. Build it. Just freaking build it. Your lungs will thank you. Heck, you will work far more pleasantly. And again, that's why I'm saying do not cheap out on the fan, do not cheap out on the filters, and do not cheap out on the activated cover. Your area will be less smelly. You'll be like, it does not suck. So DIY is a really good option. I generally would urge you to stay away from like super cheap options, because most of the time you will buy it and they will break so quickly, and many of them have foams that just look like a black foam rather than activated carbon foam, and you can see light through it. So that means gases are just going through it. So that is why I prefer DIY rather than cheap solution. Pro solution, that's a different ball game. Cheap ones, yeah, they are useless. Build your own. Build it out of cardboard box, build it out of 3D printer, whatever have you. You can build it. Or you can just have a vent if you are really tight on money. So these are the DIY option. So let's talk about the critical aspect, health. I wished somebody would have done this to me when I was younger, around 7-8 years ago, is that your lungs cannot be replaced. In my case, it was my slip disc. My back started to hurt. I did not went to doctor very quickly and I crippled it permanently. So slip disc basically. So same thing happens with your lungs. There are many people who ignored it, and then just randomly in their 40s, their lungs were like, you know what, I'm out. It's one of those things. Same happens with smoker. Majority of people do not have DNA strong enough that it can just keep repairing itself. Some people do. We keep saying that, oh, out of 10,000 people, 10 people can smoke for 100 years without any issue, and everybody's like, I'm that guy. It's like, no, you are not that guy. You are not that guy. Trust me. You want to see who is most likely, you just go to a hospital. So it's one of those things that you only have one set of it. Do not do anything that risks it. It's one thing, like in early days, I was like, wonder, who cares? But now I have made a commitment that I want to learn electronics. I have to do this regularly enough. Heck, when I was doing desoldering on this puppy, yeah, the wires are like thick. And now I understand why people are like, I need 150 watt soldering iron. Those were painful to do. It took almost a day. Yeah, if I were doing this without fume extractor, I would be going cuckoo. So trust me. And if you are a factory owner, if you're like, professional who's like taking care of this sort of thing, like, who buys for those sort of things? Here's deal. All your workers, if they become like this at the end of the day, even though they could be working for more hours, they are not productive. It's not healthy. Even Chinese people figured it out, that it's kind of necessary to make sure that your workers are not poofed out of existence. And by the way, almost all countries have laws against it. So if somebody hates you hard enough, they will destroy you. So do not have that sort of stupidity. It's like, money saving man. No, no. Your workers needs to be in a healthy enough environment. Otherwise, yeah, that will happen. So health cost will always be like, lead to what we call low productivity, and low productivity will cost you far more than it would have cost you to actually equip all the working station with a proper fume extractor. So it's one of the. And another thing is that, again, I have gone through this. That's why I'm saying somebody who should have taught me this is that if you are broke and if you think like, I do not have time, I do not want to, like, who's gonna buy this or do that, laptop repairs and technician, all those people, it's like, trust me, falling ill is far more costly. And you will not be that guy who's like, you know what, I've been smoking rosin for like, thousands of years and I did not have an issue. You will be the guy who's like, I smoked it for 40 years and then my PP bus is not hard anymore. That's the time most of people who smoke stop smoking. If you randomly see, like, why the heck so many smokers are like, coming for, therapy and trying to remove it. It's like, trust me, PP bus is not hard anymore. So trust me, you will most likely do not risk your health. It's not worth it. And you can build it. Like, yes, dude, start with the basic thing, then move upwards. And DIY solutions are cheap. So you genuinely do not have an excuse. Of course, would it be as pro level as a professional pro one? Hell no. That will require you to actually do some effort, as in, hey, it might take 2 or 3 days to build it. Find suppliers that have like giant HEPA filters and all that. It can be done. It's just tedious. So do not risk your health. Trust me, just don't. You have only one set of it. It does not come with a replacement. So this was my presentation on Fume Extractor. Hopefully you have liked it, learned from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst your friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me extra disappointment. Please leave a comment because I do try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.